So have you guys up in the far north ever taken a block of ice and put it on the lathe?
Well, I wouldn't say a block of ice, but a piece of birch that's been frozen. It's probably about 60% water when it's green. Yeah, I've turned some of those. I don't know about just a block of ice itself.
Or
Is that because you couldn't afford a shower?
Who cleans the lathe off afterwards? That's the question.
Yeah, that's always a challenge. That is a challenge when you're doing green wood. It's a challenge.
well,
You know,
what
we used to say aluminum on machinery was not a good idea, you know, in the shop. I love my Grizzly bandsaw right inside the door with the aluminum table because I can just set my tea right on there when I come in. I don't need to worry about it rusting. So
That's good idea.
Yeah, and there you go. Once you put one thing down on that bandsaw table, it's gone. You know, you're going to put 9 more things down there before lunch.
no kidding. This
yeah,
rubber-
it's that one's only that's the little bandsaw, and that doesn't have a very big table.
You ought to make a little rest for your coffee cup, you know, and try and keep your bandsaw table clear. Then you could use it.
Any flat surface is fair game.
an idea for running salted maple. You know, when it gets too punky, set it outside and freeze it.
John, in my shop, all the flat surface are fair game. When I want to use one machine, I just move everything to the other one. Then I want to move that and move it to another one. That's just the way it works.
I spent my whole life trying to get over that. I'm still not over that.
It's a law. Just use that.
It's a law of physics that stuff spans exponentially to cover all available horizontal spaces.
And vertical ones in most shops. We're going to talk about that some more this morning.
We need to start mounting our machines against the wall vertically so that nothing can sit on them. So that's
30, 20, what do we got here? 27 so far.
I must admit that Ron Sheehan, before he moved, I went into his garage and he had that thing packed away so neatly that, you know, you pull out one piece and use it and put it back again. And if he didn't pack it away, his car wouldn't fit in. So
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff he had stowed away in crannies and nooks and rafters is now in my shop.
oh, jeez.
It reminds one of Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer, that his father's cabin, that you had to take soundings to navigate the room.
That's
Well,
right.
my neighbor-
His radar.
My neighbor who was here 2 decades before me said that the previous owner had in the garage, which is now my shop, a little path that went from the front door to the back door. And boy, a couple of years later, I was starting to think I was the same guy because there was just this little path. But now it's a shop, and I keep it a little more organized.
Yeah, a little bit.
I just put a warning sign on the door going into my shop because it's a complete disaster. And I say, warning, it's a man cave. And if you don't like it, don't go in.
You got to be a man to get through it.
I would have thought you would have had a neat shop, Jeff, with the kind of things you make.
Well, I'm forever prototyping on for my other machines, so my workbenches are complete disasters.
Yeah.
They all seem
If I
to
was
end up
a professional mechanic, I'd be fired.
I've always said that I noticed at art shows when I was doing that not one single customer came in and said, "Do you have a neat shop?" before they bought my stuff. They didn't ask me if I was neat. They didn't ask me about my work habits. They just looked at the piece and after that. So I prefer not to have people at my shop.
Well, my desk is threatening to spill over and hide me, and I have a big sign. I don't have it up in this one, It says, all art is created out of chaos. My desk is a potential work of art. So
I built my wife a mezzanine in my shop for her loom and weaving stuff. So of course she has to go through the shop to get to that. And the comments about it being dusty are fairly regular. I usually don't notice the dust.
Give her a duster.
That's a fast way to death.
We almost Beckley or Somerville. Which one's?
it's my granddaughter does that to me. Lynn, my wife, doesn't even, she'll look in the door to talk to me, but she rarely comes in. But my granddaughter grabs the broom and begins sweeping up right away. So
You've trained them well, Jim.
I think it's her mother and grandmother's instincts that she applies. Good morning, Kai. I was thinking about you today. I was thinking we haven't heard from Kai for a while. Don't you have some?
We haven't seen Conover on here in a long time either, so it's good to see them both.
Yeah, good morning.
Kai's been here. He's just been quiet.
Yeah. What's your temperature? What's your temperature outside, Kai?
Well, we have winter at the moment, and that means really a lot of snow. We haven't had any snow for about 4 or 5 weeks, but now it started again, and everything seems to break down. So I had to shovel snow today, and also there's a lot of ice because we had ice rain yesterday. So yeah, but otherwise everything is okay. And maybe I have a contribution for next time then for the morning coffee hour.
Good.
You might have some answers to some questions I'm going to ask once we get started in a minute or so.
Okay, I'll try.
Somebody's in a car. Dave is.
Dave is. Yeah, I turned him off. He was making noise.
Was he?
Mike, mute. Yeah. You got the mic handles now, Bowman.
Yeah, I'm going to start muting them because you're going to start soon, I know.
I'm going to start and about as soon as my clock ticks over to 10 o'clock.
Speaking of clocks, I made my first one this week. Not a grandfather clock.
And it is 10 o'clock. It's Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 185. Is my mic okay? Can you all hear me? Yeah. My name's Sean Kelsey. I'll be your moderator this morning, along with Bowman on the microphone and lots of wise bodies on the screen. We got 39, it looks like. We usually get up around 40, 45 by the time the hour is over. I'm going to open today with some questions and comments. Let me see. I've been down in the shop. I've been making, I made this little cypress bowl. It was really fast. It's beautiful wood. I really like it. I've got a bunch of these short ends of cypress from my deck project, so I'm going to make some more of these. And I've been experimenting with Osmo to finish it. And Osmo takes a long time to dry on this cypress, and I finally realized it's because the wood is oily, and I should have used their oily wood prep for the first coat. So next time I make one, I'm going to do that. So that's one of my turning adventures. The other turning adventure I'm doing is I'm making a lot of these dust hose fittings. I got a lot of help from Ziegler, who's on screen here this morning. My shop's been pretty messy for a couple of years. It's been tending towards out of control. You know, I always remember Tay Frid, you know, what he used to teach. You got to get ahead on your wood, you know. You got to get ahead on your wood. Well, I got so far ahead on my wood, I could hardly move in my shop. So I moved most of it from one place to another. And in the course of the week, I sorted it all out. I cleared out the corner of the shop where I thought I'd put my new dust collector, which I was going to talk about in a second, because that's what I'm building up to. And I moved hundreds of pieces of wood, and sort of took the rule every time I filled up a storage shelf with blocks of wood, I had to get 10 or 20% of it back into boxes to take to the club, so the club can sell them off to new turners. So I got rid of a bunch of boxes of wood, and I put a bunch of boxes of firewood to the curb. And I made a whole lot of room in my shop, and I got rid of my big old dust collector. I haven't got rid of it yet. I'm going to offer that free to a new good home. and I bought a Jet 1.5 horsepower 2-stage collector, and seems to be working pretty good. So now I'm dithering around with fittings and hoses, and for temporary, I'm just using the old hoses I had. But I really want to I can move this thing around the shop easily. So I really want to set it up to get the dust from all my machines. So my first question is, on these small machines under 2 horsepower, 110 volt, the outlet from them is 6 inches that divides into 2 4s. Would I be better off to reduce that to 5 inches and divide it into a 4 and a 2.5, or am I better off to leave it the way it is? Anybody got any thoughts on that? And similarly, if I take a 4-inch hose into a manifold that's a box that has a whole lot of gates coming out of it to different machines, do I lose air pressure going into that box when every hose coming out of it is the same diameter, or is that okay to do? So those are my kinds of questions, and I think there's some people on here with some real expertise here. We'd like to weigh in, like Bert and Ernie, I'm thinking.
Yeah, John, I actually have machines that take 5-inch fittings. And so I keep a 6-inch, you can see it here, how it runs around the shop. And it goes over to the same dust collector you have. And you can see that I'm keeping pipes as straight as possible, and that I'm using metal pipe, and I tape it with foil tape to seal the pipes as well as I can. Table saw has 2 connections. Bandsaw has 2 connections, 2 4-inch. This has a 5-inch and a 3-inch.
Well, am I right in understanding that the goal is to maintain an open gullet of the same cross-sectional area all the way through the system?
I believe that is the case, yes.
Yeah, and I designed these things for years. But Ernie's is well laid out because, number one, you don't have an increasing trunk line. He doesn't have a 10-inch going over to his dust collector. You got to keep the velocity high to move shavings, this sort of thing. The next thing is, the key to the whole thing is the pickup point. You can't put a hood over your entire lathe and expect it to pick up all the dust. You've got to have a small nozzle right at where the dust is coming off. And it goes on from there. But
tell me, Jim, if the machine is designed to and delivered to me with a 6-inch port and a reducer to 2 4s, will I increase the velocity if I reduce that to a 5-inch duct, or will I not increase the velocity?
You'll increase the velocity, but you lower the volume. And when you go back to 6-inch, you've got less volume, so your velocity drops.
I wouldn't go back to 6-inch though. I would stay at 5 and under all the way out to the end of the system.
In your machine, it goes to 6-inch. So you've lowered the volume, you've increased the velocity through the 5-inch, but when it comes to the 6-inch, you've lowered the volume, so your velocity decreases.
So I'm better off leaving the 6-inch divided into 2 4s. Is that right?
Oh, you'd have to do an efficiency. I have a calculator.
I'm not going to do that. I'm looking for rule of thumb here.
No, 5 inch is the way to go.
John, the cross section of a 6-inch port is 28 square inches, and the cross section of a 4-inch port is 12 inches. So you've actually gone from 28 square inches of cross section to 24 square inches by reducing what your size. If you want to get a perfect match, you got to get the area of the tube, the cross sectional area of the tube, the same.
Plus, there's way more friction on 2 4-inches than there is on one 5-inch.
So John, I used to have that.
So am I hearing that I should reduce that 6-inch outlet to a 5-inch and make that my main duct?
Yes.
I would vote for you putting a 6-inch master pipe like I have around my shop, and then running. You don't want to use right angle. You want to use elbows.
Yeah.
And then drop whatever size line the machine needs down to that.
Okay, so now if the machine has this 6-inch port that's running into 2 4s, am I better off to have both those ports open? And if I close one, what happens to the velocity and volume of the other?
So John, I've had that same machine. If you remove those 2 4s, which is a simple couple of screws, you'll find a 6-inch port underneath it.
Yeah.
So if you want to match, the easiest way is really to remove those 2 4s. Now you have a 6. And what I used to do is take that 6 with an adapter down to 5, but, whatever makes sense. Yeah, I would get rid of the 2 4s.
Well, one of the things you have to consider too when you're talking about dust collection, are you talking dust collection or chip collection? So when you look at your dust collector, you take a look at the specifications on your dust collector, and your impeller will have a designed airflow in cubic feet per minute, and it'll also tell you what the vacuum, the inches of water column. So if you deadhead, basically block it off, it'll tell you what it'll maximum draw that it can do. And if you want to get rid of dust, the fine dust, because the chips that go on the floor are not the problem, it's the dust that floats. I look at it from the point of view as I want that impeller to have conditions that allow the maximum amount of airflow that it's designed for. Mine's 1700 cubic feet per minute. So I make sure that I have enough ducting open so that the filter is seeing the maximum amount of airflow, which captures all of the dust. And it changes the air in my shop every 3 minutes. And I can't see dust floating around in the air anymore. And before I used to be able to. So it's chip collector or dust collector, and getting the impeller in its happy spot to get the maximum amount of airflow going through the filter. In my mind, that's the most important.
Okay, well, how do I do that? How do I figure out what that is without getting too tangled up in calculus?
Well, I got an anemometer. I just bought a $30 anemometer, and I went around and I found out. I just put it in front of the 6-inch by the lathe and just kept opening and closing ducts until I seen a change, and that, I mean, I just used that. I didn't calculate it. I just found out where it was the happiest, and putting a velocity stack on it, one of those cones that we were talking about here several months ago, that made a tremendous difference on the 6-inch by my lathe. It was it was like 30-40% increase in airflow just by putting that on. It was amazing. I could not believe it until I did it.
What is the anemometer measuring?
Airspeed. So it's just an anemometer, little fan. It's just measuring airflow. It's measuring velocity, basically.
So if I take all the ducts off the dust unit and measure the airflow into the unit, then I'm looking to match that at the other end as best I can.
Well, you'll find out what it is at the device, and then every time you add a fitting, measure it again, and you'll actually see the difference. And it doesn't matter about the numbers; it's just the change, your relative change. So if you go 10 feet out, there'll be a different number. If you put an elbow on, it's a different number, and you're just trying to maximize that for what you're trying to do. Rather than you can calculate it, but an anemometer is such a simple device, and it's visual. You just put it on, and there's the number. It changes.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to do that before I buy any more fittings and blast gates. Ernie, what kind of pipe is that you're using?
I bought that from the guys Oneida. It's galvanized pipe, and it actually was in my own old shop, and I just took it all down and moved it over here. I've got a lot left over, actually, but one of the reasons mine looks so good is I made all the mistakes in my old shop.
Well, Stu and I did the same. We went and got the Sinclair. I think it was Sinclair Supply. It was an HVAC company. We put it all metal ducting, permanent metal ducting with 45-degree drops wherever we need it. It makes a big difference.
And pounding them together carefully and then putting some pop rivets in them really pays off too. And then using metal, aluminum tape, and do not use duct tape. It's worthless for this particular purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the question of making a manifold like a box that has a bunch of drops coming from it? If the hose enters it at one diameter, the box gets a bigger volume, but each hose, you only gate to the same diameter hose out. Do you wind up screwing up the airflow when you do that, or will that work?
The box will actually act as a filter and fill up with sawdust, and the fine dust, it will pack in there like you've never seen before. It will plug itself off because of the velocity change in a
Okay.
square box or a manifold. That
Not to do
it'll-
that.
Yeah.
You'll have to move your shop west because it's manifold destiny.
Yeah, you want to keep the inside as smooth as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm understanding all of that. And have you guys found that you can buy the fittings you need, or do you end up making them like I tend to do?
I bought everything I needed except for the cone. I made my own cone. I made my own velocity stack, but all the other fittings were commercially available.
I've done it both ways, and the commercial fittings are reasonably priced enough that it really isn't worth the effort to make them.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's that whatever I spec, I have no idea whether they're going to work. So I wind up with all kinds of fittings that are just wrong one way or the other. And the only way I could get a fitting that actually solves the problem at hand is to turn it. Because
I measure my equipment before I go and buy the fitting, so I know how big it is.
well, the damn catalogs don't actually tell you the actual dimensions of the inlet and the outlet on things. You know, they don't have the data. So
Oh, we go to KMS and I measure it with I take a tape measure with me. I go to Busy Bee or KMS and actually pick the fitting up in my hand and measure it because I had the same issue. But yeah, I take a tape measure and just measure them.
I guess I'm going to go route this time and go to the Oneida catalog and see what they've got, and then I bet all their stuff works together.
It's actually very well laid out and very helpful on that sort of thing. The worst place to go is Woodcraft for their plastic fittings. They don't even fit together in the store sometimes.
Well, that's exactly. I just before I came on, I filled out a shopping cart with $300 worth of fittings on Woodcraft, and I said, I'm not going to execute this. I'm going to talk to these dudes first. So you've gotten me a lot to think about. Thank you.
Well, John, the other thing you need to think about, or what people haven't said, is they're using air conditioning and furnace conditioning pipes as opposed to plumbing fittings. So if you try to cross over between PVC and airflow, you're going to have a lot of fun making your own joints.
Well, which would you recommend? A plastic sewer pipe or a metal pipe like Ernie's using?
Metal.
Ernie's metal pipe would be better.
HVAC pipe is designed for airflow. So all those little things about the smoothness of the inside, if it's built for an HVAC system, it's already designed for maximum airflow on the inside, and every little bit helps. So even if it's a few pennies more, it's worth it in the long run.
And the other part about metal is it doesn't accumulate static electricity either.
It accumulates it, but dissipates it right away because it's grounded, right? It dissipates it right away. Static still builds, but with metal it dissipates, so you're safe.
Yeah.
So, having built a lot of buildings, residential and commercial, airflow has always been a consideration, and water and air are looked at often similarly. So, if you can think of your system as water, you're moving in a fire hose or a garden hose. So just think of it in reverse, John. So you're at the filter, and as much as you can push out in water, so a 6-inch hose is going to give you more flow, more material moving through in a quicker period of time. So just now out to the different elements. So air, same thing, going backwards from whatever equipment how many pieces of equipment do you have, John, that you want to put some collection to?
Chop saw, bandsaw, polishing station, and mainly the lathe. But so I need to switch the machine to do different things at different times in the shop. Oh yeah, and planer. But I can see how to do all that. I can see the way to plug it up, and I understand that I want an open throat all the way. I don't want any obstructions in that line.
So one of the things you consider, like it's been sort of touched on so far, bends.
Yeah, I understand
an
that.
easy thing to keep in mind is if you put a 90-degree elbow on a half-inch water pipe, it's adding 15 feet of length. It's the same as adding 15 feet of straight length.
And you're going to get hammered pretty soon. Same with this.
Well,
hammer.
Right. So think about or consider, do you really need a 4-inch or 3-inch drop to your chop saw? Do you use it that much? Could you use a Festool vac instead that'll come on with your chop saw? Unless you're using your chop saw all the time, those vacs work pretty well. And the nominal amount of dust that'll get in the air, it may be worth it to you so that you don't have to now compensate for that in the ducting system.
No, I've already got a box around my chop saw and a vent out of it, a 4-inch vent out of it, and it works pretty good when I connect it. So my move is now to connect these things in ways that are convenient, because up to now it's been flex hoses that I connect and disconnect all the time. So I'm gonna use my existing ports and duct some of it and leave some of it as flex hose, because I'm going to move the machine around. Because it doesn't work if I have it on one side of the shop or the other. One way or the other, I have to cross the shop with a hose, and it's just more hoo-ha. So I'm seeing some ways to solve this that could work pretty well. I was going to just stay with hoses, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put in some piping. I like the look of piping.
I've noticed in a lot of shops where flexibility is a high priority, that the plenum is mounted along the ceiling. That would be the hard line. And then you have drops in your flex. So you have your combination, but use metal wherever you can, because it's much lighter, easier to work with, but it will be cheaper because the larger diameter plastic pipe it'll be a slap in the face when you get a cost.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
And
that's what I'm looking at.
Use the foil tape around all your joints, even if it's metal to plastic or blast gate to plastic, metal, so on. That stuff is tenacious. It will stay.
Yeah.
Sticks to anything. I've taped up a couple of neighbors who were irritating me. They're still stuck to the tree.
Yeah, I've discovered that. All right. Duxbury, you were trying to say something else. Did you get your whole piece said about this?
Well, you want to do a screen share? Let me do a screen share here. Here's my system. I use 4-inch to everything because I'm using a 4-inch blower. This is my blower in the corner here. It's only 1 horsepower. This is a manometer. This tells you the static pressure. I use 4-inch in everything, all my equipment. I turn this thing sideways. I can't turn it sideways. Anyway, this is the dust collector. The discharge is just as important as the intake, because the air has to get out of the system.
Yeah.
So rather than have one bag on the end of this like it was designed for, I've got 2 bags, and then on the bottom, this is the top of my old dust collector. I cut that out. I have 2 bags to relieve the pressure, and then the chips fall in this bin at the bottom.
You've made your own machine that does what these current 2-stage machines do.
Everything, yeah. This is the key. One of the keys I find is you've got to close the blast gates. It's great to have 10 blast gates. You go over using a table saw, and you open that one, then you go over and use the joiner, and you open that one. Pretty soon everything's open and nothing's sucking. This has a micro switch on it. I think it's called the Lone Ranger or something. You pull that out. When you open that blast gate, it turns the dust collector on. That minimizes the amount of time you're using the dust collector. Also makes you shut the thing off when you walk away.
Yeah, I get that.
The other thing is, I wish I could turn this damn thing, but
well, there's a button there somewhere for it. But
yeah, but it's under the stop screen share, the thing. Anyway, this is a manometer. All you do is punch a hole in the ductwork somewhere near the fan and put a coupling in there. This is just clear tubing, comes down to a U shape with water in it. And the clip on the side here, I think I got a better picture of that.
Yeah.
Damn, how do I move this thing? Wait a minute.
We can see it, Jim.
If I shrink this and then I can turn it. Okay, now, oh man, I'm getting smarter. Here we go. Gee, I can't believe it. Anyway, the tube comes down. It's just a U-shaped tube stapled to a board. this clip on the side here has got a little aluminum half round that clips onto the tubing with a ruler on the end of it. And that way, if the water evaporates or something, you can move that up or down. But that's your 0 point. This is my operating. As long as I'm above the green, I'm moving enough air. If it starts to drop below here, then my fan is plugged up. I'm not moving air. If it starts to go above there, then my duct is plugged up and I'm sucking too much static pressure.
Huh.
Okay?
Okay.
Because you're nothing. Oh, in the end, I put a filter on the end. That's the end of a gardening glove sticking on there. That filters the air. Okay.
Well, this is a great discussion. Anybody else with any pearls to add to this? Kai, have you got any special knowledge here?
No, actually, I haven't. I've got a big dust collector in the shop, but I connect it via a hose either to my table saw shaper connection machine, or to my planer, or to the lathe. So I have to move the pipe all the time. But my workshop isn't really high, so there is not a lot of space for putting in permanent ducts. So I stick with a hose for the moment, and I try to keep it as short as possible. For one purpose, when I turn bowls and produce a lot of dust, I have a special short hose that I can use for the connection. So that gives me even more airflow there. And the diameter is just 4 inches that I have. So I haven't got any special knowledge on a permanent duct system. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Can
Anybody
I
else?
add, Don, I added a pleated paper filter to mine, I don't know, a couple of years ago. Made a humongous difference to the airflow. I only have a 1-horse system, and I have it connected to a 50-gallon drum with, I can't remember the guy's name that invented it, a device that it's sort of like it's one step up from just putting the lid that Lee Valley sells that you put on a garbage can. I don't vacuum. I don't use mine as a chip collector at all. I use it as a dust collector. I ran it for 10 years, and I finally had to empty the 50-gallon drum. And that was mainly from the bandsaw, the lathe, and the table saw. My planer I run with just a small drum and a shop vac, and I don't do a lot of flat work. So
what I've seen in some other shops too is a separate machine almost to collect the dust at each location where it gets created. I mean, I think Ziegler must have 4 or 5 vacuums, a dust collector and 4 or 5 vacuums in his shop. He's saying 3 vacuums, makes sense. A lot of the stuff we have doesn't produce a huge amount of stuff. I mean, a laser burner produces noxious smoke, but it's not a lot of smoke. It's not a huge deal to get it out of there. Versus all the
John, the other thing, John, is the less flex hose, the better.
I get that.
Yeah, that's the worst stuff you can get. Flex is terrible. This is called a ductilator. If you want to get serious, if you want to know what the efficiency of a 6-inch compared to 2 4-inches, you can. In fact, you probably have to have 3 4 inches to be efficient. But that's how you design it. That'll also convert to square. So if you're 6-inch round, you want to go to square, you could have 4 by 8 or something. Anyway, then that's the efficiency. That's not the area. That's actual efficiency.
And what museum did you find that in?
What?
And what museum did you find that in?
Yeah.
We get the internet these days.
Well, it's on computer too, but this is what you use when you're on a drawing board doing it. And I'll tell you, I have to think about how to use it, tell you the truth. But you use it a lot, you get efficient with it. And that's how you design a big system.
Well, I see Max has got his hand up over here. Max led me to a site that had an enormous amount of information that I read, and it was very, very detailed. I gotta say. Max, what do you got on this? Or you want to talk about something else?
No, just am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just a couple things. I haven't heard anybody talk about putting their dust collector and air compressor in a separate room to get all that noise out of the shop. If you've got the ability to do that, the shops I've been in with it out, in another room, that's really great. The other thing, now this probably doesn't work for most of us, but my son has a furniture business, and when they build a new shop, they knew where they laid out the equipment, and then they ran the ductwork underground before the cement was poured. So there's no overhead ductwork for all the dust collection and so forth.
I would say that's the way to go if you can, but I'm not too practical in my basement.
No. But if you're building a new shop, it's something you might consider.
I would if I was building a new shop. I agree.
That's all I have.
What do you do if the pipe gets clogged under the cement?
You have a real little person get in there.
Yeah,
it won't get clogged.
Shop elves.
Drain mold.
Roto-rooter.
John, I've got one little curiosity for Jim Duxbury here. I just wanted to show him this. It belonged to my father-in-law. Does anybody know what that is?
Slide rule.
It's a pocket calculator, guys.
Yeah, I have one of them still in the drawer.
It's a slide ruler.
And didn't take any
the original
either.
The original pocket calculator. Anyway, on to wood turning.
Hey Max, I'm with you on that. I was thinking too all of that. Why do you put your dust collector and your air compressors in your shop? It takes up space. It puts that dust and dirt in there and noise. I moved even my little shop. I moved both of them over to my wood storage area. Man, I love it. So
yeah,
make damn sure if you do that, make damn sure you put some kind of fire detection in. Because if that damn thing ever catches on fire and it takes you 5 minutes to figure out it's on fire, you've lost the whole end of the shop. You can't imagine what happens when these things catch on fire.
No, I'm going to build a cabinet for mine in the end once I get this all worked out, because just again for sound. But good advice, all. Let's move on and look at some work. I see people's with hands up here. I'm going to start with Janet because we haven't seen work from Janet in a while. I'm hoping you're going to show us work, Janet.
Well, I have a question back on the dust collection. Just if you want to post it in the chat, that would be great. The velocity stacks that you were talking about, I know I've heard some, I've looked them up, but where do you find them? Where do you find plans for them, etc.?
We posted some. Barry designed one that he made, but I found them on Amazon.
Okay.
And I just took, for my velocity stack, I just took a plastic fitting and just turned one out of wood and just sized it to glue onto the plastic fitting so I could screw it, just pop it into the end of a hose.
Okay, but there are details like sizing, what's the size, the actual shape of the cone, etc. Is that available somewhere?
I don't believe it's really that critical that it is a specific dimension or radius. It's just something to round over. Some of the engineers might be able to be more specific, but as long as it's rounding over the entry point of the pipe, you're getting rid of laminar flow turbulence. And I suppose there is an optimal radius, but I just put just rounded it over what looked good and put a 4-inch recess in and epoxied it into the wood, and it worked, and it was cheap and it worked.
Barry had a PDF.
I took Barry's drawing and then with a photo editor resized it so I could have a 4-inch inlet, and I've put that in a PDF. I'll see if I can post it in the chat.
Okay.
Great, thank you. I appreciate
and then I
that.
made it segmented. It was a lot of work. It's my only segmented piece in history, but it does. Bert says it does work. And the one that Amazon, you can get it from Amazon. I think it's $20 for you guys. It's almost 30 here, but it's a 4-inch, right, John?
Yeah.
So that's the fastest way to go for it.
Yeah, okay. I found a very nice aluminum one for about $20. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much, and I'll do my best to get some work to show you soon.
Okay, love that. Thank you. Don Svob, you had your hand up and then you went away. Did we lose you or are you still here?
Well, I'm still here. The issue was with the air ducts. Everyone always puts them on the ceiling. Mine, I ran it halfway down the wall under the window ledge. And so there's a horizontal line, so I don't have to lift and then drop the soil. And I was just questioning, is that an advantage or disadvantage?
That makes sense to me, but what do you guys who know more about this think?
Shorter the distance, the better. That makes it shorter.
Near a window ledge.
The shorter, better. That makes sense too. Yeah.
I did the same thing as Don did. Mine runs below the windows at I don't know, it's at 3 feet or so above the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. I'm going to see if I can figure that out too. Yeah.
The only problem with that would be getting around doors.
Well, you
have that as a doors
yeah.
are
Layout issues. Yeah. Everybody's shop is going to be different on that one. That's for sure.
Everything I own is anchored at 3 feet above the floor. I got stuff hanging all over the place.
You'll notice on Ernie's shop pictures that he had it coming down from the center of the room. So actually he had it coming from the ceiling down into the middle. So if you have all your tools around the edge of your shop, that's fine. But if you're trying to get into the middle of the room, into the middle of the shop, it's going to have to go to the ceiling sooner or later.
Yeah. Yeah, one way or the other. That's what I'm up against because I have my lathes in the middle of the shop. I like it that way. So, okay, Bert, you're going to show work today?
Yeah, actually I do. I'm going to do a screen share. Let's see if I can do
Anybody else who wants to show work, put your hand up, please, and we'll call on you.
So can you guys see that? It should be a picture of a spindle with a thimble and a couple of little spindles beside it.
Yeah.
That is a commemoration urn for a friend of mine that passed away here a day or two ago. Her daughter had asked Stu and I to collaborate on making an urn, and Stu had his eye surgery here a couple of weeks back, so he wasn't able to get in the shop, so I ended up having to take this. But the base is a quilted base, and Sharon was an avid quilter, and the group that she used to quilt with, I got a hold of them and had them make the cover for the base. So that spool is a full-size urn. It's about 200 cubic inch capacity. It's got thread on the outside and a big needle and I put a thimble on there or to make it look like a thimble. And Dee had asked for some memorial urns, so I made some miniature memorial urns that are shaped like the main urn, and they have a little needle stuck on the side, so it just symbolizes what a quilter would have in her quilting room. And so that's what I did last week. It was just delivered to the crematorium yesterday.
Bert, you said memorial urn. You mean those are little urns?
Yes, they are. Yeah, those are
Okay.
little urns. One for each of the family members wanted a small amount of the remains. So the little urns are threaded on one end, so they look like a thread spool. But the way I turned them is I turned them and left a little bit of a flange on one end and threaded it and threaded the cap. So they fit together. You can't even see the join line because the thread runs right up to the join line, but doesn't fall off. It's got a little bit of a flange, so the thread doesn't fall off when they open the end. And it's hollowed. It'll hold about 2 cubic inches on each one. And yeah, the family was just absolutely overjoyed with it. They thought it was exactly what they said it fits Sharon's personality perfectly. And it's a collaboration. We got some woodturners and some quilters collaborated to make this thing.
Very nice. Very nice.
What did you use for the needle and the look of thread?
That is actual thread. There's 1,500 meters of serger thread that I had to wind on it to cover up the wood because the thread is there's probably about 6 or 7 layers of actual thread to cover up the wood, and the needle is actually a doll maker's needle. It's 6 inches long. So in order to keep it into scale, I got these real long needle and stuck it on there and then wrapped a whole bunch of thread on top of it. But yeah, there was about 1,500 meters of actual sewing thread on that spool.
Wow, that's incredible. Awesome job.
You know, thank you. Yeah, and it's like say Stu and I have been doing this for a few friends now, and rather than just make something boring, we make something a little bit unique. And like they say, the funerals and celebrations of life are not for the person that's passed; they're to create a memory for the people that are still here. So we're pretty sure that these kinds of things give people a fond memory of someone who's passed, and it's an honor to be able to be part of it.
Very good work. Very nice, Bert. Thank you. Dux, what do you
That's
got
it.
today? Okay, going to go to Duxbury.
I'm coming. I got a screen share here. Computer's slow or something. Maybe it's me. Window I selected is not responding. Wait a minute. Damn it.
Well, we're enjoying looking at your handsome mug.
I can't make the damn thing come up. Do some. Wait, I got it. Here we go.
Okay, give it a try.
Don't ask me. I have no idea. It works different every time I do it.
I know.
Oh, it's doing. It's
We
all,
don't have it yet, though. We're not seeing anything.
it's all selected.
Yeah, we're still not seeing it. I'm going to move along.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, Carl.
Oh wait, here it is. Here it
comes. We
Here
got
it
it.
is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Can you rotate that now? You did that before.
No, that's the way it is.
Oh, that's the way it is. Okay.
Holy smokes, you had me worried. These are wall hangings, turned offset. That's walnut turned on 3 axes.
How big? How big is that?
It's about 7 by 15.
And is it like it's flat on the wall or projecting out from the wall? I can't tell from the light.
Flat. It's got a wall hanging. Well, I'll show some more of them here. This is another one. This is Cadillacs trimmed in holly. And
those are kind of cool.
These are kind of these are a pair of them. The problem with making these things, these other ones, is I can only make these. I got a 20-inch lathe, so from the center of this opening here to the corner here, it can't be more than 10 inches. So I can't make anything bigger than like 15 inches across here. So I'm getting a little smarter. I'm making these 2 at a time now. I'll show how to do this, but these are both made 2 at a time, which cuts your cost in half, almost. And that's what they look like. This is just taking pictures in so it fits in my light tent. But this is the back of it. It's got a little hanger on the back. This is a prototype, and it's not right yet. I'll get it right one of these days when it gets warmer.
Well, I'm finding the pointy ends on it to be a distraction from the circles.
I'll show you how that happens. The pointy ends are to get rid of the screw holes where I mount it. Other things could be done. I see what you're saying. On this end, I could bring the points in or kind of follow that. But anyway, these are the first ones. That's the back of the second one. This is what it looks like on a lathe. That's a 20-inch or a 19-inch wooden disc on the faceplate. There's a piece down through the center that's mounted on center. And then these are just mounted and then flipped back and forth. I can show the other side of it.
So there's a disc behind there that you're screwing all this stuff to.
Yeah, this is a sacrificial disc. In fact, it's getting to look almost sacrificed.
Is that MDF or plywood? What is it?
Plywood. I end up with these holes, these ends like this. So I have to do some kind of a disguise here, a way of getting rid of the screw holes. Yeah. Anyway, it works really good. The problem, when I drew this, I was thinking about the number of rings. There was going to be one more ring out here. But if I turned one more ring out here, I'd have been out in the end of space over here.
So wait a minute, you turn those pieces over, butt them back up to that center board and turn it again. Is that what you're doing?
That's right, yes.
Nice idea. Very clever.
2 at a time. When you make a mistake, you got 2 of them. That's the best part. Man, you can make a lot of, you can make a lot of.
The empty holes are what you're using to change the center or something else? So how do you change the center to do the other portion?
Turns it over.
You just turn it over. The other side is the same.
Oh, the other, okay, got it. Now I understand.
Here's the back of the piece finished, and here's the front of the piece finished.
Yeah, you turn it over.
Jim, why
Yeah.
don't you use hot glue instead of screws?
No way in hell. Oh my God. I'd get killed with the thing.
I don't know. I'm starting to be a strong believer in hot glue.
But you've got a 20-inch disc there.
Yeah, this is, and I turned, I turned pretty fast. I'll tell you, I had a counterweight. I was doing these one at a time and counterweighting them. And I did a bunch of them, and I ended up screwing the counterweight in and out the same holes a couple of times. The counterweight went through the wall, and the piece went the other way, almost broke the window on the other side of the shop. There's a lot of, this not only does 2 at a time, it counterbalances the thing, so you got a perfect balance when you turn it.
Hey, Jim, how do you keep your depth of groove the same?
Oh, that's another whole story. I have a bar goes right across here, the whole thing. First off, I reference from this surface here. And then I have a bar goes across just a piece of, I don't know, inch square with a hole drilled in it and a piece of brass rod. I reference from here to the top of these ribs. And that's that would be about a quarter of the thickness of the piece. So if this is an inch, this would reference down from here to the top of this would be a quarter of an inch. And then when I turn the groove in the bottom, I reference from here down to a half an inch, and that gives me half of this is cut. Then when I do the other side, I do the same reference to the top of this rib, but when I cut the grooves, I cut the grooves deep enough to expose the openings on the other side.
What tool are you using?
Probably a 1/16 parting tool.
Are you using the same tool for all of the carving?
I use a gouge I dish this whole thing out first. I use a spindle gouge, 3/8 spindle gouge to do that, and probably a scraper, maybe a 1/2-inch scraper or something. But then when I start cutting these ribs, if you start cutting ribs with a wide parting tool, like an 1/8-inch parting tool, I usually start from the middle. But once you've cut one side of this rib, all you've got is this thing here holding it together. So when you cut the other side, if you start taking an 1/8 inch out, you could bust that out. So I use a 1/16 inch parting tool for almost the whole thing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Amazing. More questions for Jim?
You have a little detail there. It's along the lines, not quite as complex as Hans Weissflog. So
kind of, yeah. He does his on a sphere, yeah.
Yeah, many different ways and real small tools too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What is the overall thickness?
What?
What is the overall thickness of the
It's
piece?
about an inch.
Total. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a Hans Weissflog. I've made one of those, and that's a lot of fun anyway.
I have several of the Weissflogs.
Yeah.
Anybody else on this? Very good stuff. You got more slides, Jim, or are you done?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for Jim?
Hey, Dux, you need one of those Venturi or whatever on the end of your dust collector. I saw the pipe sticking in the corner with a 45 angle cut.
But that's a full size, orifice going right to the dust collector. That's 4-inch going. If you notice that, I can't show it, but that's on a rod. You know that cage that Powermatic comes with, that worthless thing that nobody's ever used? Anyway, I cut the bars off that and used the bar. That thing indexes off of that or adjusts off of that right to where I'm making the dust. I have a 4-inch port right on where I'm making the dust. It works great.
Nice.
Okay, Karl, you're on the screen. What do you got?
It's more of something I came across. I'm going to try to do a quick share here. Sorry. Damn it.
If you're on a phone, that might be a little tough.
Yeah, what the hell was I supposed to hit here? I just had it and it's gone. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go to Jonathan while you fool around
Sure.
with it. If you get back
Here
there,
it
we'll go. You got it? No, I think you just froze. Jonathan Wilson, take it over.
So this is a piece of Western red cedar.
Okay.
I'm just sharing this because if you see the 2 pencil marks.
We don't have the share yet, Karl.
You don't?
We do. I see it.
I can see it.
I can see it.
I see it.
It's me.
I
I'm
see
going to
it.
open the door here.
This is just a Western red cedar. The 2 pencil marks are 1 inch and just under 3/8 apart. Just randomly selected 2 points on this almost sphere. I'm just showing the grain. That distance between those 2 pencil points is 88 years. This ball is 3 inches in diameter. It's 202 years old.
Very cool. Western red cedar.
Western red cedar. I happen to have rescued, for lack of a better word, a lot of Western red cedar from a manufacturer of structures and so on. And I have these 1,000 pieces sitting on the shelf that I just grabbed to play with, and I was making some ornaments yesterday, and I just absentmindedly was turning some spheres, and I realized, holy shit, this grain is almost microscopic.
Yeah, that's
and it is, because when you hold this without the advantage of the camera here, it is, you almost can't see the grain. I just thought I'd share that. I mean, it's old growth cedar. Just thought every once in a while you come across something cool. That's all. I'm sorry.
If you want to shed off a couple of pieces of those, bring them on to the next club meeting.
I might do that.
John Wilson.
Good morning.
Morning. What do you got?
I have a question. I have another piece of very big wood that I need help with, and I'm interested in other people's opinions, not mine. I've drawn out how to cut this sucker up. She's heavy.
Tell us what it is. Tell us more about it. Which way is the grain and all that stuff.
Sure. So this is a white oak burl. It's a monster. It's weighing in at about 138 pounds, 45 long left to right, and then 27 tall up down. The bowl or sculpt out you see in sort of the middle is a 10-inch disc that popped out when the Sawyer cut it up 3 years ago. So it's created a challenge for me as to where to get the best yield. And this was your question a number of weeks ago. Am I going for the best wood or am I going for the best yield? And I've drawn out some obvious discs, a couple 15-inchers, some 10s and 12s, and then a 15-inch disc around where that plate has popped out. But I'm throwing it to you folks. How would you folks make the cut on these? And the small round circles on the edges are where cracks are, right? Those are the defects that I need to minimize, or they would transfer into the bowl plate. This sucker's 4 inches thick. That's the other thing. It's 4 inches thick, so there's plenty of material. There's no shortage of material here.
I would be going for the single best bowl, and then I'd see what I could do with the rest of it. That would be me.
Would you go large or would you go single best bowl?
Single best bowl.
Is this a slice off the end of the log? So it's this is across the grain that we're looking at. Growth.
I can barely hear you, sir. One more time.
Is this a slice off the end of the log, like is it a growth, or is it like where's the pith? These
Right.
look like
There's no
growth
pith,
plates.
sir. This is the burl. This is a monster burl
Okay.
off of a white oak.
So it's off the side of the tree, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Anybody?
I agree, best bowl. Yeah, best.
I like what you've done. Like 15-inch bowl, these are sizable bowls that you're going to get out of that. And this piece here in the center is going to mess up your best bowl.
Right. That's the
I would
challenge.
do
That's
it
the
in a
current
natural
situation
edge
I'm in.
configuration, even though it is a slice. Is this this is the tree side that we're looking at? Like,
This is one of the faces of the burl. So the burl came on the outside. This is a slice off the burl.
Yeah. This is the tree side we're looking at.
The tree side. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I haven't done much burl. I've done a couple, but to me, a natural edge configuration is the best way to go. Even though it's not going to be natural edge because you got a flat side on the other side.
The thing I've learned, and I'm really trying to stick to, is to drop the idea of trying to get maximum yield out of anything and get the best thing I can out of it, and then use the rest in whatever way it's usable. But to always go for the very best single thing out of any given piece, and let the chips fall where they may, as they say, without regard to trying to use it all. But then I got a lot of wood, so.
Well, to your point though, John, is that get the best you can out of it. All these, they may not make bowls, but there's all sorts of little boxes and everything else you can make out of this. So you're not losing that wood just because you didn't make a bowl out of it.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of small vessels you can make that will look equally beautiful. You know, a small hollow form,
bandsaw boxes even.
Bandsaw boxes, David Ellsworth used to call his spirit vessels, where you got little small things like that. So you can make a lot of pieces out of that without just sticking to bowls.
I think you have a very unique opportunity. That spot that came out in the middle, I dedicate a bowl to that just because of the uniqueness. You don't have to put a chisel on the inside of it all, and you just say, this is the way Mother Nature made it. And then I like your arrangement otherwise, except I wouldn't intrude on that sacred bowl in the middle.
I got a question. Where the 12-inch and the 15-inch bowls intersect, is that flame in there? Because to me, that looks like a primo place.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not normally this indecisive about this. Cut it up and go and move. And agreed, none of it's going to go to waste. But to your point with the flame, that left side where you're seeing the 15 and the 12-inch intersect, there is flame or ripple in there. But in all honesty, in person, the photos don't do it justice. The right side where the 10-inch, the two 10-inch bowls are, the ripple over there is even better. So to John's point, I need to be working off the right side. But I agree that natural pop out where the 10-inch bowl came out of the center, and I've got it labeled as a 15-inch. I mean, I think that's just unique.
Yeah, I would have to go for that, and then we use the rest of it, whatever. But that has to go. You can't lose that piece. You got to go for that.
Can you make that offset center? I mean, the outside of the bowl kind of offset towards the bottom part of the screen?
Very much so. I mean, I'm just very indecisive. It's a beautiful hunk of wood, and I was like, all right, well, throw it to the group and see what they say. So here we are.
Make your first cut and then go from there.
I think it's easy to be indecisive because it's kind of hard to tell what you're going to get through the piece. I kind of like the reddish color over on the left. To me, is something unique from the rest of the piece a little bit. So I think you're going to get several things, and you know, until you start cutting one or two of these out, it's going to be hard to tell what the real variance is. I mean, we can see the side a little bit on this cut, and it looks pretty intact, but I like the color variation as well. I kind of like the piece on the left is far more than anything. But I think if you put 6 of us to look at this, we'll find 6 answers.
Right.
I keep looking for Dave Delisle on the screen. He was on earlier. Dave does an awful lot of burls, and he might have something to say, but I don't see him here now.
I've got a comment. This is Max. I had a large white oak burl like this, and David Ellsworth told me to come in from the edges and make some cuts at different angles and polish that up and see which way things look best to you. And mine was thicker than this. I ended up with a set of 5 nested bowls out of it, but it was it really helped to get a better, because you really can't see the grain very well on this, but there's parts on the edges where you could come in and make a little slice with a saw and polish that up and see what that grain looks like, and maybe cut it at a little bit of a different angle and see what that looks like to get your best feature out of it.
This may be begging the question, but no, you can't get a bad cut out of a burl. You know what I mean? You might be able to get what is considered better, but you have no way of really knowing what's in there until you chop it apart, and it's not going to be bad.
If following on that, if we've all seemed to agree that center feature is important, so if you make that cut first, see how the rest of the burl, if there are any internal flaws that are going to emerge from that, and then size down your 2 bowls on the right, the 10 and 11 inch, because they're, you know, just get that center 15. I would be inclined to take the 12 inch that's near the top of your photo, shrink it a little, slide it to the right, and move the adjacent one up a little, and try to, your 2 flaws that you have circled and or a circle and 2 what look like small missiles, knowing that they're there, harvest that piece of wood so that it can become smalls. Get your circles. I think you can pull your 15 down to a 14, slide it north, move your 12 to the right, and get that now 14 under it, and you get everything you want. But make that first cut around the 15, because that'll tell you if there's any structural issues with this burl that are currently disguised. You had one structural issue that created this interesting effect, but that was a defect that has manifested. So start with that, make your cut there, and that'll tell you everything else.
I'm
Jonathan, you good with it? Okay.
Thank you.
Randy, you got the last 1 minute here. What do you want to tell us?
Well, the Pennsylvania Farm Show is history. I was not able to demonstrate or attend, although I did help with setup, and I took these 3 small. These are mahogany. I cut this all out of the same small block of wood. These are about 2 inches tall and vary from about 2.5 up to about 4 inches.
Nice.
Now we did send out a poll. We're trying to figure out what we can do better next year, and we're already thinking about that. We did send a poll out to all the Susquehanna Woodturners members, and if you get that, it is an anonymous poll. You can put your name in if you want, but it's not required, and we are not recording who says what. So we are going to try to start developing our program earlier. It was a bit rushed at the end, and we're going to start doing that for next year's farm show. How many people actually attended the farm show here in Pennsylvania?
I was actually there demonstrating with one of our other members on Monday.
Yeah, you and Danielle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I demonstrated too on the first Sunday morning.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always fun. I demonstrated last year too. I was turning eggs last year, and there was this young boy. I love demonstrating when there's kids watching, and this one little boy came and he just stood there the entire time. And of course he ended up with the egg that I turned at the end. And when I first was there this year, getting set up, he came over, and of course he looked a year older. He's 10 now instead of 9. And he was so excited that I remembered him. And, you know, that's what makes it, to me, so worthwhile to do it, to have these kids see this. And no offense, guys, to have these kids see a woman, especially a woman with gray hair, doing this and thinking that it's perfectly normal. I mean, I have 2 grandchildren, 4 and 7, and they don't think anything's odd that their grandmother is a wood turner, but was just so much fun seeing the kids there. It's always a pleasure to do that. So hopefully I'll be able to do it next year too, and maybe see him when he's 11.
Oh, wow. That's a great
Danielle and I both had fun. We made a lot of tops, gave them out to the kids. We gave them markers, and they would pick the colors we put on the tops for them. They had a lot of fun. I spoke with the fellow who runs that from the whole display with the ag department, and we're gonna get in contact here shortly. The concept that we could maybe grow this a little bit and bring some other clubs in and make it almost a competitive environment, something fun, sort of its own draw or a sub feature at the farm show. If the ag department could draw in some lathes, either directly from the manufacturer or maybe Department of Ed at schools around the state, something where there was a little, some more energy of something going on, getting more people in, maybe some interest in that. So
Yeah, one of the things we are thinking about doing, and we're going to talk to to Nathan at the Woodcraft store, is about getting a larger lathe. So
I reached the guy from the ag department. I was talking to him about the idea that the state could maybe help acquire a couple of larger lathes, a couple of Powermatics or jets, so that there was more than one machine there of some size that everybody could use and get, you know, chips flying, and instead of 5 kids, there'd be 100 kids, so they're all sitting there in chairs with lollipops, never leaving, sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to start planning a lot earlier next year. They really don't know until like the beginning or end of November where they're going to be and what kind of space they're going to have. And so we're going to try to make assumptions that we're going to have about the same as last year. We've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, and it's always a lot of fun, and we have a great time.
Yeah.
And thank you all for another delightful coffee hour. I'm glad the farm show went well. I hope nobody got COVID this year too.
No, I didn't.
Good. We'll see you all next week.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Yep.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.